So I played this back at PAX. What have you guys obviously you guys added the brand new clock zone.
Yep.
What other gameplay tweaks and stuff have you guys done since? Or like,
so the biggest thing you're going to see in the demo is obviously the new level theme. The other kind of major thing we've added, other than this gear that doesn't seem to want to move, hey buddy, there you go, is we started to enable the sort of hard mode version of the game, the entropy cluster. So in this demo, we only have a small sampling of what's available overall, but we have 3 of 30xx's new entropy conditions that you can turn on during the demo. It's always interesting figuring out what the shape of the demo ought to look like. We're used to a physical show like at PAX, where we put together like a pretty tight 15 minutes with random level chunks. So if somebody plays it through a few times, they'll still get some bonus fun out of it. But when it's all stuff you download as part of a festival while you're at home, suddenly the game changes a lot, and what we're kind of optimizing for becomes very different. And so, we certainly don't intend for players to spend, hours and hours and hours playing our little 2-level demo.
Yeah.
But we know we can't stop people from doing it, so we figured we'd add a few little bits to sort of keep that more fun in the event that that's how people want to interface with the demo. So we added in a few of the game's sort of challenge boosting entropy conditions to sort of spice stuff up. So you can tweak enemy health anywhere between base and 300%. You can turn on a timer in the levels that will kill you if you take too long.
Oh wow!
And you can turn on hyperinflation, which makes your currency go nowhere near as far. Everything costs way more, so everything we pick up will be for both of us. So if you can press, I guess Y for you to pick up. And one of the new systems here, I guess we're in your system, and you had the salvager, which means you already had this unlocked. So you had the the salvager circuit that lets you make the decision of, do I want to pick up this item for whatever its real bonus is, or would I rather salvage it for a little bit of health or nuts or whatever it's offering me.
Yeah, earlier today when I saw your tweet go up that Gamescom demo was like, ooh, let's take a look. So I downloaded it and checked out the entropy, noticed that it was new, the new clock zone, and then got the salvaging ability earlier today. So still am so impressed with how good this game looks. Like, I love the pixels art that you guys have put in. I love Ace's. I love the characters' redesigns, kind of their not modern takes, but like kind of sleeker, I would say, takes.
Yeah, sure. I'm super proud of the entire team for 30xx, but seeing all of our new art come to life in game is like always a massive point of pride for me. I've been telling people this all week, but one of the most satisfying parts of this job for me is getting to see sort of the fruits of the team's labor as we sort of spool them together and put them into the game. It's just so fun for me getting to see like a new enemy asset or a new song or any kind of new asset in the game.
Oh,
so we could theoretically kill him, but we should probably just let him chase us. I think I need to, this is one of the things I think I've learned over the last couple of days, I should probably make it a lot more obvious that, so you can, in theory, you can kill this mini-boss just by attacking him over and over and over before the end sequence here. But it will take a really long time, and it's not the intended way to do it. And I should probably make it a little more clear that that's not the intended way to do it. But that's what early access and demos are for, right?
Yep, exactly. So, about how long, like how far into development is this?
Great question. So we still have it labeled as like a very, very pre-alpha demo on Steam, but it's it's maybe a little bit less very than before. We are, we're still a little ways from early access. We've been telling people that early access is it's pretty likely, like 70% likely that we hit, by next spring. So, it's like something like within the next, 6-7 months, but we don't know exactly when it's going to hit just yet. We've been working on it, depending on how you measure. The initial prototype of 30xx was put together in late 2018. So if you measure from there, it's been about 2 years. But, we've had the full team together in full force for much less time than that. More like a year. Just sort of slowly, sort of spooled together folks as they became available from other projects. We really spent a lot of time being very careful with the team we put together for the game, because we knew that we had some pretty lofty aspirations this time around.
Yeah. So at the end of Clock Zone, I noticed that the end boss was much more, I would say, in line with the bosses from 20XX. It wasn't humanoid based. It was the gear. It was still very reminiscent of a Mega Man boss. Will the rest of the bosses aim more towards kind of the humanoid Maverick-esque design, or will it air more on kind of the wacky designs and very different kind of boss designs like you guys had in 20XX?
The answer is a big old yes. I know you didn't answer our ask yes or no question, but yes is definitely the answer. We have a pretty good mix of that. We do lean a little bit toward, some of the bosses. There are more sort of, standard sized, humanoid-ish bosses in 30XX than there were in 20XX so far. But sort of the guiding principle for us with 30XX bosses as we go along is making sure that each of them has kind of a unique identity. Each of them kind of has a unique feel. Each of them has some, mechanics that go at least a little bit beyond raw execution, sort of like a little bit of player knowledge of the fight. Different ways you can interact with some of the mechanics. So, like for the Clock Zone boss, sort of the ending goal there is that each of the 4 faces of the boss has sort of a different attack associated with it. And so, as you destroy the faces, that attack goes away, and the remaining enemies or the remaining faces will use their other attacks more potently. I think currently we don't have the attack uniqueness down in this demo, but that's the kind of thing we're thinking about. So every fight should kind of have multiple ways the player can choose to engage with it. There might be like riskier or gutsier plays that can shorten parts of the fight, things like that. Oh, good health. Man, we are getting pretty beat up, huh? Yeah, thanks. I'm surprised at how well remote play together is working. Like, I have a little bit of delay, but it's really quite playable. I'm in the Seattle area. How far away are we?
I'm in Michigan, so I'm a ways away from you.
Yeah, honestly, given that, this is really smooth. Go Steam remote play together. +1 for Valve.
Yeah, I was curious how I haven't really done much with remote play together, but it's one of those things I've always wanted to mess around with, and this seemed like a good time. And I enjoyed playing 20XX multiplayer, so it's just like, yeah, well, let's try it. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super smooth so far. It's almost smooth enough to make me say, you know what, forget developing online multiplayer. It's not quite smooth enough, but it's pretty close.
Oh, don't do that to me, because then everyone will blame Irrational Passions for you guys dropping the feature.
Yeah, they will. They absolutely will. That's just true.
Those guys, they took away our online multiplayer.
It's interesting, right? You could sort of see if there's definitely there's kind of an inherent speed of light issue at play that's going to make us developing our online multiplayer always a little bit worthwhile, just because we can, the sort of client trust model that 20XX uses, because it's totally PvE. If you want to cheat, if you want to use hacks or memory modifications or what have you, go nuts, have fun, right? Like that's none of my business, because it's not a strictly competitive game. Which means we can get away with, really, really client trust heavy netcode. We, instead of the, sort of typical server structure where there's sort of one authoritative player and whatever they say goes, in 20XX, it's all, whatever an individual player says goes. So if you see my bullet miss and you're the host, but I'm the client and I see my bullet hit, my game will say, hey, no, I hit that guy. You count that hit. And the host will say, okay, sure, you're probably right. And so because of that, it's always going to be worth us kind of developing our own multiplayer even if it takes a little extra time.
This stage, like the backgrounds in this stage, always get me. It's just like,
it's
I love
so pretty.
So good.
This is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. I feel like on one hand, I know I'm like sort of gushing about my own game project, and so I feel a little bit braggy as a result of that. But I'm also I'm celebrating the work of really, really talented people who are not me, and so I feel very comfortable doing that. Just every part of the team on 30XX, I am so proud of, and it's so fun seeing the incredible work that they've been doing for each of these stage themes.
I'm of the mindset that like good sprite work and like pixel art will always age well, whereas like if you look at PlayStation 1 games or like early 3D games, even
GoldenEye.
Yeah, even PS3 games, like games we thought at the time were, it's the pinnacle of we'll never look better than this. it
Right.
always will. But good pixel art just will always look good.
I'm with you, man. Any game or any art style where one of the primary hooks is sort of the fact that that game pushes the graphical capacity of whatever system it's out on is always eventually going to age. But any of these kind of, I sort of see pixel art as one of so many types of like really heavily stylized styles. This kind of game would be made to look like this almost no matter when in history we made it. As long as we did this, as long as we made a game like this after 2010 or so, we kind of have all of the core technologies that go into it, and it's not really dependent on like the release of any new hardware.
Now with 20XX, you guys eventually added, or you had Hawk in as a third character. Is there any plans to have Hawk come back with this, or brand new characters in addition to these two?
Really good question. So the goal overall, we're going to do early access, and that's kind of hopefully before spring time frame I mentioned earlier. 1.0 will be some number of months after that. Chances are 1.0 will only have, that's a lot of fire, huh?
All the fire.
Yeah, this is a level 2 bonus area, so it's a little spicier. There you go. Nice. Is that makeable? It's definitely makeable, but the timing is so tight. Oof. Anyway, we really want to, I think yours is the left one. We really want to continue to support 30XX pretty much indefinitely after release. Like our goal is sort of to make a genre standard here. We want this to be the kind of game that people come back to if they want a crisp controlling action platformer, or a game feeling like a Mega Man game for the next, several years at least. So provided we're doing at least all right financially, it's very much our thing to continue to support and add new themes, weapons, characters, all that stuff over time. In terms of what we'll do in terms of new characters once we get there, it might be Draco and Hawk, but even if it is, we're gonna have to do a lot to sort of refresh the way those characters play, because in 20XX, Ace and Nina are relatively similar, right? Like they have different primary weapons, but all of their powers are the same.
Right.
In 30XX, they have entirely different toolkits based on the items that they pick up from bosses. And so the characters play so differently that it's really important to us that any new characters we add also feel as different and as fresh as 30XX Nina and Ace feel from one another. And especially because 30XX Ace kind of takes cues from 20XX Draco. We would kind of have to retool the way both characters play. There's a lot of room for a Hawk-like character. Like it would be pretty easy for us to pull off a similar Hawk. Really energy focused, really power focused. Probably some fresh work to do there in terms of her powers to make that really interesting still in 30XX. But Draco would kind of have to be reinvented from the ground up to make sense. So we definitely want to make new characters, but the discussion is super early for us in terms of what they look like, which characters, how they play. We just want to, we kind of want to continue to push the replayability of the game along every dimension, and new levels is part of that, new powers is part of that. Like really everything is part of that, which sounds kind of like a cop-out answer, but it's also true.
No, it completely makes sense, and that was one of the things you really stressed during the PAX demo when I met with you, was how each character, Nina and Ace, have their own abilities now. Like they have their own weapon drops from bosses, and it's not going to be the same for each character, which is huge. Like it's great.
Right.
Made it
Nice. That was smooth. It's almost really unsmooth. Is that a health machine? We have some money. Yeah, you should probably stock up a bit. You're pretty beefed.
Here, if you want to grab a couple before it explodes. Or are you
I'm good. Go for it. I think I'm okay.
Okay. Boop.
I'll dice it up. Oh. Phew. Wasn't sure I was gonna make that jump.
Gotta go through the doors jumping, right?
Yeah, well, it's critical. There are two kinds of people in this world: those who jump through doors, and
those who are wrong.
we don't speak about the other kind.
Yeah. Armor.
So unfortunately, we're a little poor. We have 16 money, so we may as well spend out on health because we can't afford any of this stuff, and the demo's about to end. So here, I'll take one of these. Grab the other ones. I think we have money for one more. There we go. Go for it. All right, I'll snag it. Thanks. should be in pretty decent shape.
Yeah.
That's plenty of health, right?
Oh yeah, we got this.
God, I'm really impressed with how well remote play together works. This is great.
Yeah, it's really feels good. Oh.
Thanks.
You guys have definitely nailed the whole X vibe.
Perfect. That is what we're going for. You know, we think there's just. I'm pretty sure that this kind of game, the tension, the excitement, everything that a good action platformer does is just going to be. It's kind of like an evergreen emotion to tap into for people of our generation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think younger generations too. I think it's just there's always going to be demand for this kind of like really crisp, satisfying experience. So we want to try and deliver on that as best we can for as long as we can.
What's been the reception of this game so far? Because it's been in pre-alpha. You released it. What was that? Steam, like Summer of Games or something? You released the super pre-alpha
Bingo.
demo.
Yeah, so we did our first demo for Steam's Summer Games Festival in June, 2 months ago. Reception was super strong. We had a tremendous number of downloads, a lot of wish lists, really good performance there. We're super happy with all that went. Reception to the game has been really positive since our announcement. We first announced it a couple of weeks before PAX when we talked to you the first time.
Yeah.
Our trajectory is really strong. We're happy with wishlist numbers. We're happy with some of the sort of showcases and other promotional events we've been so lucky to get the game into over the last several months. And yeah, all that's looking pretty good for us.
That's good. What's been the biggest takeaway? Like, what is there anything you've seen from the reviews or comments of people playing on Reddit or what have you that has been like, you're right, we should do that, or we should look into doing that, or what took you guys by surprise?
Man, took us by surprise. It's so much less for us about sort of like monumental, like earth-shaking big changes we've made since alpha, though I'm sure some of those are coming in early access. It's really just we get to kind of polish the game against the grindstone of incoming fan feedback that just makes everything that much more crisp and that much more polished. So for a couple of examples of that, one of them might be during the first demo. The first version of the Steam Summer Games Festival we pushed had the Zen Primus boss battle without the 4 statues in his room that you can sort of destroy to shortcut his like shield and fireball sequence. And we had some fan comments basically saying like everything else in the game, there's always a point. And so one of our kind of design philosophies is to always make sure the player has something they can be doing instead of just having to sort of sit and wait for a bit. And so one of the changes we made was this sort of extra shortcut to the phase, to Zen Primus' shield phase, where we had these statues, and if you're able to destroy all of them, then his shield phase will end a little bit early, and you can sort of move on to phase 3 without having to see all of his fire stuff or wade through it. So it's kind of stuff like that. It's a lot of, instead of being big monumental stuff so far, it's just been lots and lots and lots of little things that we fix over time, just to sort of really polish it across the board.
That's cool. It from everything I've played, and I've played through this demo a few times now, even before with the pre-alpha from the Summer Steel and everything, and it's so tight. Like the controls, everything just feels so good to play.
That is job one, right? Like that is our biggest goal first and foremost. Is it like the crisp gameplay experience you're looking for with the appropriate amount of challenge for a given player? Does it feel satisfying to play? Does the game do what you want it to do? Are you able to do the things you want to do in the game? Like those are all sort of taken together, like overwhelmingly the biggest part of the job. Like that's the number one thing we want to do. So that's wonderful to hear.
So was Zen Primus kind of the first area that obviously it was the first one you got to the temp stage or the development stage of? But I guess
go ahead.
No, I was just, is this kind of where you guys started, or was another location that you haven't shown off necessarily yet?
You guessed correctly. Zen Primus' Burning Temple was the first part of the game we started building, kind of as a prototype for the sort of 20XX2 engine, as we called it at the time before we decided on 30XX as the name of the game. this was sort of how we sort of workshopped the initial art style and some sort of the beginning mechanics, stuff like that. I think the biggest thing, sort of as a behind-the-scenes look while we're sort of playing through Burning Temple here, is I just want to draw a couple parallels between Burning Temple, the way it exists here in 30XX, and how a similar theme might have existed if we had built it in 20XX, the previous game. So you know from 20XX that every stage you play through is really just it's sewn together from kind of predefined level pieces, and the level pieces are just kind of all taken out of a bag at once, and we just, so if it's like a Sky Temple level in 20XX, we just take a bunch of platforming pieces and a bunch of combat pieces and we string them together, and that's your stage. In 30XX, every level has a much sort of better defined sense of identity. So every time you play through Burning Temple like we are now, you're going to see different chunks, you're going to see different challenges laid out in front of you, different individual sets of enemy placements and hazards and all that stuff. But the level will always have the same overarching structure. So you're always going to start in sort of that open forest area with some light platforming, some enemy placements. You're always going to have what people kind of call the Indiana Jones section, where the big rolly wheel will chase you through sort of a downward sloping arena that sort of culminates in that boss room where we fight him off. And then you're always going to have the sort of more intense, flame-heavy temple section that you play through toward the end of the stage, and then the boss. So instead of it just feeling like, oh, this whole level, this is a big Sky Temple level, and it's just all kind of the same, here each individual segment of a Burning Temple level kind of has its own identity that is always going to flow through every time you play. So kind of, we just have a slightly more defined level design philosophy this time around. So the level sort of feels like a more cohesive whole, even though as you play through it, you're still getting presented with sort of fresh, replayable content. Like the biggest thing for us is making sure that we give the level sort of as much thematic feel and as much weight as possible, while still keeping it fresh and randomly generated. But it's been a really interesting balance to hit.
Now, when you guys have gone and designed your levels, do you start with the boss of the level and design the level around the boss, or do you design the boss around the level?
That's a great question. We tend to start. We've kind of approached a number of our. So we have a number of the games, levels fully developed internally. Some of them are things that are still really early on that we're still working on, because of course 8 themes is 20 or twice as many as we did for the first game, and so there's just a tremendous amount of work involved for us. Since we're still a relatively small team working on it. Some of our level themes have kind of come from almost everywhere. This theme kind of started as a, let's sort of extend 20XX with sort of mechanics that feel a little bit similar to what we're used to, and see how it feels with the new art style, with the new enemies, with some of the new controlling aspects. So this one kind of started just as a let's sort of start building on the previous game. Some of them were kind of thematically driven first, like, oh, it would be really cool if we had a level that felt like this. What mechanics would make sense? And other than that, we sort of started with a big pool of individual game mechanics in kind of like a big sandboxy playground environment that we have. And we say, based on these mechanics, which of these would be really interesting to combine together? And then from there, based on these sort of mechanical bundles we now have, what kind of sort of environmental theme could fit these mechanics well, and then we sort of build on that from there. So really, we kind of design each theme. Each one kind of comes from a different place. There are like a lot of different ways that we can come up with a given level theme.
Okay.
Nice.
And I'm curious. It's called. You mentioned that this was originally kind of what you guys were internally calling the 20XX2 engine.
Right.
Does 30XX happen 1,000 years after 20XX? Like, is there
sure it does. Yes, the narrative of the game is set 1,000 years later. There are reasons, TM, for why it is taking place 1,000 years later, and kind of what has happened in the intervening period for our heroes and for the world around them that we have not publicly released yet.
Okay.
I need to turn up the HP of those shield statues in co-op because we tore through that way too quick. Just worked.
It just works,
Yeah.
So like Todd Howard says, it just works, right?
It
just works.
yeah, I guess it just works.
Just works.
So I'm gonna pick up a Zen Mortar. So now you've got the flaming uppercut, and I've got the Zen Mortar here. I can shoot it upward, and I can split it with another button press.
Mm-hmm. That's a fun one. When I realized you could split it. Like if you when you time another button press, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, super handy.
Oh, so that's nifty. So I can use this as a traversal tool too.
Bingo. So it's great at hitting enemies that are kind of in that up into the side area next to you, but it's also an awesome traversal tool. It's honestly probably more useful as a traversal tool. And that's kind of the design behind most of Ace's toolkit. You know, he's meant to be a very Swiss Army knife kind of character. Like, as you play through a run, as you get each of the boss techniques, they're all mapped to the controller at once, and so he kind of has an answer for almost any situation the game can throw at him.
Do you have a preferred character that you like to play as?
That's a great question. I go back and forth, which I tend to see as a positive sign. Hacks, I can't get up there. I don't have the ability to shortcut that. But it seems like all you've found is spikes. Just a lot of spikes.
That's exactly what the spikes want me to think.
Actually, I guess I could have made that jump if I had gone this way. But I'm glad to know there's nothing over there. Yeah. That's probably a spot where a chest can spawn. It just didn't happen to this run. Whoa.
Ah.
Spicy jumps. I think you've got a dash. Oh my! I was on the other side and then I tipped off.
Oh,
boo.
No.
There we go. You got it. Nice. There it is.
I kept trying to incorporate my uppercut into what I was doing.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it helps, and sometimes you're kind of getting in your own way. Man, this timing on these little bits is really tight, huh? Probably makes more sense to, let's see, do this and then time it like that. Oh, there we go.
Hey.
Yeah, we have some of the harder chunks that probably don't belong in a demo as our level 2 here, and we just figure if they kill players, that's fine. It's a demo. You should die on level 2. That's fine.
Nuts.
And right on cue.
There you go.
You die on level 2.
I was demonstrating. I've already proved I can play through.
Right? Yeah. So now you just gotta show off the deaths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta show off your skills now.
Yep, bingo. That makes sense. Alright, I'm gonna head on up. It's just, I definitely just saw it teleport your corpse. There you are, you're alive.
Now, do you have any, like, are you able to play through without attacking until the boss, I guess?
Yeah, well, yes and no. It's not really possible to do. So you can technically go through as a pacifist. It is very difficult, and you will have to. That's a lot of stats that shouldn't be in the demo.
All stats, all up.
All stats, all up. There are certainly hazard and challenge placements that will require you to, if you don't kill an enemy in the way, you'll have to like damage boost off of it. So kind of, you can play through most of the game in a pacifist fashion, but there are definitely placements where you'll have to kill something, or just take a damage off of it, keep moving with the invulnerability frames. Oops. We've had people complain that we have murdered one of their favorite side characters because that item that gave me full health and +1 health is called the Blue Lander in 20XX. And here it's like an essence capsule instead. So the implication is that it is what is left of that favorite character from the first game. By the wave beam has pretty solid reach.
Yeah.
Makes this relatively straightforward. I say as I get hit a whole bunch of times.
You got the life. You're good.
Right. Yeah, I should be fine. Just need to get out of this little area. There we go. Oh, I didn't realize I already finished off the top head. I'll take some damage there and just get lasered.
I think if you stand on that and just use your charge shot, it will hit both the bottom and the top, or the bottom.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, that would have been a faster way to deal with it.
Oh, there's a revive capsule.
I can revive you just as we finish the demo. Hooray!
Well, thank you, Chris, for kind of pulling back some of the layers of how you guys have put this together and kind of your design philosophies with this game.
Yeah, of course, we spend a lot of time thinking about it, so it's always a pleasure to get to talk about it with somebody that wasn't part of that original process. It's always just sort of fun to share those ideas for the first time.
Yeah. But no, it's been fantastic. I'm looking forward to trying through some of the entropy stuff as well with this demo and seeing how how badly I can get my butt kicked, but it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I hope it is as fun as we have tried to make it.
I'm sure it is. So, but thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time. I know it was for squeezing me in for this.
Yeah,
demo
of course,
and
pleasure as
everything,
always.
and talk to you guys, and until the next demo.
Yeah.
And everything.
We will see you then.